Welcome back to episode 2 of the Crease Violation podcast. College lacrosse season is officially back. We had games last weekend. We had games throughout the week. Let's talk about it. Starting off last Saturday, I made some picks throughout the episode. Some of them hit, some of them didn't, but it was a great weekend in college lacrosse to kick things off. We saw some great games like the Denver Johns Hopkins games, Hopkins pulling out that 3-point victory. We saw a good Maryland Richmond game. We saw a lot of teams perform well. Georgetown, I picked Loyola to upset them, but Georgetown proved me completely wrong, putting up 13-6, beating Loyola in the Battle of the Jesuits. It was just overall fun to have college lacrosse back on. And then throughout the week, that Hopkins Towson game, that was a really close one. That was a fun game. That was a 1-goal game. That was the Battle of Baltimore, and that was a little closer than I thought it would be. I don't know if it's because Hopkins is not as good as I thought they'd be, or that Towson is better than I thought they'd be. But that was a lot of fun. 17th ranked Towson showing they can hang with the best of them after I put the Jays in my Final Four picks last week. But just sitting here, it was an overall just great to have it back. Like I've said multiple times, I just can't overstate that. That Michigan Marquette game last weekend, I said that Marquette could keep it close. That's one of my worst predictions ever. My friends used to call me off target sports. I think that was the off target prediction that Marquette could keep it close, considering that game was 14-1 in Michigan's favor. I really wanted to fade the Big Ten teams last weekend, but you know where that worked out? In the Ohio State Utah game. I faded two of those mid tier Big Ten teams. One of them did not look good. And then one of my predictions did look good because Utah, that was my team of the week. That really was a team of the week. They've shot into the rankings now. They showed that they can hang with Ohio State. I don't know if this is an Ohio State problem or it's a good Utah, not problem, but it's because Utah is so good. I think it was a little mix of both, but I think that Utah was a little underrated, and now that they're sitting up there in the rankings, 1-0, I think it makes sense. I think that's where they should be. I hope to see them there a lot this season. Same thing with Rutgers. Rutgers has entered the ranks after beating Lehigh by 4 and also putting up 17 on LIU this Tuesday. So Rutgers and Utah, first two teams to go from unranked and shoot up into the rankings. And I think that's really exciting. I think that's exciting for the Big Ten to see Rutgers get into there because I think we saw Rutgers in the Final Four a couple years ago, and they've kind of been absent a little bit since that go around and making it to Memorial Day weekend. We've seen teams like Michigan do well, winning the Big Ten tournament. There was a lot of hope for Ohio State this year, which I still think there's a lot to love with this Ohio State team, and I think they'll be back. I think they'll be okay. But I think for the Big Ten to see, Ohio State has been ranked, Michigan has been ranked this year. Now that Rutgers is ranked, Maryland is ranked, and Hopkins is ranked, I think fans of Big Ten lacrosse have something to look forward to. And I had the ACC and the Ivy League as my top two conferences, but at the end of the year, the Big Ten could come away with this saying that they're the best conference in college lacrosse after this year if they can continue this trend. But obviously, I still have the ACC and the Ivy League ahead of both of them, just in terms of strength of conference play. But that brings us into some good games tomorrow. I'm currently filming this on Thursday, February 6th. We got games Friday. We got games Saturday. We got a lot of games Saturday. A lot of teams that we haven't even seen yet are going to kick off their seasons this Saturday. And we got some games Sunday. And then maybe I'll touch on the weekday games because, my Qs also play that Monday. But, just looking forward to it. I talked about some of the conferences last week. We'll touch a little bit into them as we go through the games throughout this week. Hofstra versus Wagner kicks us off on Friday. Give me Hofstra. They looked good against Iona. Yes, it was Iona's first game as a Division One program, but yeah, it was 20-2. I think Iona was just happy to kind of get out there. Hofstra did look really good, though. I think they moved the ball well. I think that this Hofstra team, they can make some noise. Hofstra's always, a solid Long Island team, but it's Wagner, not the strongest team this year. It's it it's just I have nothing else to say about that game. UMass Lowell versus Merrimack. I know Merrimack looked really good in week one. I want to say really good. I'm pulling up that score. Not really good. Sorry, they lost to Bucknell. I remember they played. I don't know why I thought really good, but they lost to Bucknell. I think they come back. They beat UMass Lowell, who's kicking off their season. Queens versus Holy Cross. Queens is still struggling with that jump to the Division One level. You know, The Mount beat them 14-9 last week. 9 is more than I thought that Queens would put up on the board, but I still think Queens is struggling with that. Jump up, give me Holy Cross in the Patriot League here. Lehigh versus Fairfield. This is Lehigh's going to get right this game. I do think Fairfield can have a solid season, but Lehigh's getting right this game after coming off a loss last weekend. Give me Lehigh. Then that brings me to Syracuse versus Vermont in the JMA Wireless Dome, right across the street from me as I'm filming this. Syracuse. Let's talk about them a little bit. Man, that Syracuse team. I thought I kind of had a little bit of doubts with them. Jacksonville wasn't the toughest competition last week, but man, that Syracuse team showed a lot. That you got Michael Leo, you got Luke Roa coming out in the midfield, showing that they can pick up. I talked about that loss of midfield production from last year with Jake Stevens graduating amongst others, and just a lot of guys moving in and out of the orange. They proved me completely wrong. That midfield unit looked great. They looked ready to take over. I'm very excited. I wasn't able to be at the game. I think I'm going to be in the game tomorrow. I'll either be in the dome where I'll be helping out with some pregame shows. But just very excited for that. I think Syracuse looks great so far in that midfield. They're there. They're ready. It's there. Spillane is there. I think Vermont's going to be a little bit of a closer game. I do. Vermont's, I think, a little bit more solid than than Jacksonville was. I'm trying to think. I had something written down for Vermont, but I think that they're a little bit more solid. I did not keep that note in my phone about them. But yeah, Syracuse is going to keep rolling. We break into the weekend. Mercer versus Marist. Again, these are games that I don't know too much about because a lot of these teams haven't even played yet. But give me Marist. Monmouth versus Manhattan. I like Manhattan this year. They were solid last year. I believe they won their conference last year in the NEC. I think they could look to do it again. I just like Manhattan. And then give me Army UMass. I'm gonna use this to talk a little bit about the Patriot League and Army because the Patriot League had a solid year. We saw last weekend Lafayette beating another service academy in Air Force. The other two service academies playing within the Patriot League, but all a similar type of level here at the service playing at the service academies. But I think the Patriot League could have a really good year this year. And my favorite team out of the Patriot League, I've said it before, it's this Army squad. They're ranked 13th in the country. We've seen them doing great in the playoffs recently. I've played with guys that are on this team. I know that they're a tough team. I know that they're going to play hard. And I'm excited. I think Colgate's good in the Patriot League this year. They did not complete that upset that I predicted them with Penn State, but they still kept it relatively close. Only a 5-goal game against a ranked Penn State team. I didn't even talk about Penn State during my Big Ten preview. Penn State also ranked up in there. So now all the Big Ten teams have been ranked throughout this year. That's just a great thing for the Big Ten. But for Colgate to keep it close against Penn State, I think that shows that they're a strong team. Navy is strong this year. I mentioned Bucknell beat up on Merrimack. I mentioned Lafayette, Loyola. I know they didn't pull off that win against Georgetown, but they're still Patriot League's deep. That's what everyone always says. The Patriot League is always deep. You never know what team's going to come out of it. I talked about Lehigh. They're going to get back this weekend. It's out of all the strong Patriot League teams, I think this Army team has the chance to really elevate themselves and show that they're a step above where the rest of the Patriot League is. I don't really think it's a two-bid conference just because of what you see out of the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Ivy League. It's going to be hard for a conference like the Patriot League to get a two-bid team. But if you get to the Patriot League championship and Army is ranked high and they potentially lose in the championship, then maybe you start seeing a second Patriot League team, slip into the playoffs potentially. Bellarmine versus Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst making this jump to the D1 level. I have no idea what to say about Mercyhurst. Like you're coming to the D1 level. It's exciting. We've seen teams do it before. I don't know if they're ready for the jump. I'm gonna give me Bellarmine. I suppose they got like if you're Bellarmine, you let Duke score 26 on you. You did get 7 against Duke. Who I mean, that's an accomplishment scoring 7 against Duke. But you got coming off a loss like that, you got to be fired up if you're Bellarmine. Like in that locker room, you got to be fired up, and you gotta go out and you gotta want to kill somebody this week. Not kill somebody, but the guy across from you, you're gonna want to hit him hard. You're gonna want to put some goals in the back of the net because you're angry. You're angry after last week. Give me Bellarmine. Lafayette versus Binghamton. I talked about it. I don't know what this Binghamton squad again, their first game. Lafayette coming off that Air Force game. Give me Lafayette once again. Talking about this deep Patriot League. Bryant versus Providence. Again, I believe this is the first game for both. Oh, no, sorry. We had Providence last weekend. They beat Holy Cross. Holy Cross did look solid, though. Better than they usually do. I predicted Holy Cross winning this week. Give me Providence in that. Canisius, Hobart. Give me Hobart. I think I saw the line on that was like, I, I saw something had like odds of Canisius winning like an absolutely ridiculous amount. I don't know much about this year's Canisius team, but clearly the sports book that I was looking at did not like them in whatever fashion it was. And then Colgate versus Virginia. This is a fun game. Last week I predicted this crazy upset that Colgate's going to do it against Penn State once again. It's not going to happen because Virginia's really good. I'm not going to predict Colgate to beat Virginia. But I think this is good for this Colgate team to they have two tough opponents early in the season that they might not win these games, but it builds the strength for you in a conference like the Patriot League. If you're going against Penn State and UVA early in the season, you're building up toughness, you're building up grit, you're getting the film out there to show what you need to do against a top level competition. I think that's going to help them. But that UVA squad, I had some doubts about McCabe Millen. Yeah, he shut me down last weekend. McCabe Millen McCabe Millen was great. I think McCabe Millen is going. Not he hasn't shut me down because, um, obviously the season hasn't kicked off yet fully, and UVA this is their first game. But I think he's going to shut me down with my doubts of him. I don't know why. I just think because the doubts I had going into last weekend, my doubts about McCabe Millen are about to get shut down as well. Duke versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville, similar to what I just said about Colgate, facing off against another top-ranked squad in the country. When you're a mid-major, you're in the A-Sun, you're not expecting much, and you're facing off Duke after losing to Syracuse last weekend. I think it's going to build up toughness. I think it's going to build up grit. Coach John Galloway talked about playing these good teams because they want to build something like that. He knows Jacksonville isn't this Power Five team like Duke and Syracuse, but it's going to build them up. Give me Duke, though. Duke's rolling. Duke looks good. Like I said, 26 on Bellarmine last week. Duke looks really good. We talked about that the drop off of losing a guy like Brent O'Neill and Dyson Daniels. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just it not that it doesn't matter, but they picked up right where they left off. They're ready for it, and I'm excited. It's a good it's a good Duke team. I'm not excited as a Syracuse fan that it's a good Duke team, but it's an exciting to be a Duke fan right now. I watched Duke basketball destroy Syracuse basketball last night, so that wasn't fun. So it's a good time to be a Duke athletics fan right now and say the lacrosse team is going to be just fine with Brennan O'Neill moving out. Like I mentioned, it's the Andrew McAdory show now. VMI versus High Point. VMI looked much better against St. Bonaventure than I expected. If you had told me VMI was going to put up 18 on St. Bonaventure, I wouldn't have believed you, and they did. So I think this VMI team stuff, I think this High Point team stuff, I don't really know too much about either. Again, it's early season. It's so hard to predict things right now. Give me a High Point. I don't know. I'm still going to doubt VMI. I don't know why, but I think both teams looked solid last weekend. High Point four goal loss to Navy versus VMI, riding a little high. I think High Point's going to be a little more motivated coming off that loss. So give me High Point. Navy versus Iona. Same thing about Iona. Brand new program. There's just not a lot to say because there's nothing on film about them. I think that they can build something. I think that they want to do better than they did last week. But this Navy's they're not going to be. I don't have them beat Navy, unfortunately. Iona, watch out for them though, because I think that win's coming. That win is coming because they play back-to-back games this week. They play on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm just going to skip right ahead to Sunday. And Iona, I'm having you beat Hampton. Shout out Charlie Shear and the Iona Gales because I'm having Iona win. Check that off. Sunday, February 9th. That's my prediction for Iona Lacrosse's first ever win. That's what I'm going with. But no, they're not beating Navy. Mount St. Mary's, LIU. Give me the Mount. LIU, they looked all like they looked okay. against Rutgers. They 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 did get. No, I'm not even gonna say it looked okay. I only watched the highlights from the game and I saw like one cool clip from LIU that looked cool. They lost 17-3 to Rutgers. They're gonna lose again to the Mount. Shout out Jack Slater. Shout out the Mount this year. They're gritty. They co-posed with like no context lacrosse the other day. They seem like a gritty squad. People keep making jokes that they're like Cabrini. Rest in peace to Cabrini lacrosse. But I this Mount squad I like. I think that they're tough. I think they had a nice preseason. I saw they kept it close against St. Joe's and some other squads. But yeah, here's a good matchup this week: Michigan versus North Carolina. I faded Michigan last week, and they just proved me so wrong. Like I think that somebody must have listened to it. Somebody at Michigan must have been like, "Oh, Collin Smith saying Marquette's keeping it close." And they were like, "No, we're not going to show any mercy. We're not going to even let him think that they're going to keep it close." But like I said last week, this North Carolina team, I really like this North Carolina team. They just released a new helmet today. I don't think that means anything, but I always think new helmets are cool. I always think new helmets are exciting. It's like a navy blue helmet. I think this North Carolina team's good. Duffy on attack, Madden on attack, Bresci in the midfield, and Bresci the coach. There's something I really just like about this team. That I think that they're going to do well. You have Petramala there on attack. Petramala, the coach, as well. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. I really like this UNC team. I think that they can make a deep run. There's just something about it that's going on with them, and I've been give me UNC on it. Then next we move on to St. John's versus NJIT. Sorry, I got some friends walking by as I'm filming this. St. John's versus NJIT. Last year's America's team, NJIT is back. I don't think they're going to start the season. What was it, 5 or 6-0 last season after having like 4 combined wins over the past 2 to 3 seasons? NJIT, a little bit of program building there. They had that solid stretch of games last year where people were like, can they win? Can they win their conference? Who's going to beat NJIT early in the season? They eventually lost. They did. I remember tuning in for NJIT versus Lindenwood. That was America's true game last year. I forget. It was, I think, maybe Michigan or some other good team had up on the iPad, and I had NJIT versus Lindenwood on the TV because that was America's game and it was America's team. It's the return of them. St. John's, though, it's a solid Big East year. It's a solid Big East conference this year. I don't really know about either team. Give me NJIT. It's America's team. We'll stick with it. Robert Morris versus Richmond. Richmond looked really good against Maryland really good in a loss to Maryland by 5. Held Maryland to 12. Was able to put up 7. Give me Richmond in this one. St. Joe's versus Sacred Heart. Give me St. Joe's. I think this St. Joe's team is solid. Shout out Michael Mashalis, my boy from high school, the Hammer. I think that the St. Joe's team is really solid. I think that they're going to make some noise. They're my prediction to come out of the A10. A10's a fun conference. I like St. Joe's out of it this year. Maybe we'll touch a little bit on the A10 later in the episode, depending on how we're doing on time. Siena BU, give me BU. I talked about it. I like the Patriot League this year. They're deep and they're going to beat the non-Patriot League opponents that they play, and then they're going to beat each other up in Patriot League play. That's what's going to happen. Give me BU. Then we go to Hopkins versus Georgetown. I know I talked a lot about the Michigan versus UNC game earlier in the week. My game of the week is this Hopkins versus Georgetown game. This is the one I'm going to be tuning into Saturday at 1 on whatever stream. Hopefully it's on ESPN Plus or whatever streaming platform it's on. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to watch this game because this is an exciting one. Because you got Hopkins. Hopkins, who I predicted in the Final Four, is playing great in a solid Big Ten conference. Avenged that Week 1 loss against Denver last weekend. But then in the Battle of Baltimore, they ship over to the crosstown rivals over at Towson, and it's a 1-goal game. But they come out with it. They win a close game, and that shows. It's as much as I think that they should have won by more. Winning close games is important. That's important in any sport. If you can win the close ones, that matters because a lot of games are going to come down to that. And so Hopkins has already showed they can win that close game. When you need it, you got it. Whether or not that game should be close or not, they were able to get it. Georgetown, Another team that I predicted to lose last weekend to a Baltimore team. It's just because it happened the year before, I think, is why I got too caught up with it. I do think that Georgetown is solid. They looked great. Anderson Moore in goal, great player. This is an interesting matchup because Hopkins goalie, I forget his name, but he was Loyola's goalie last year when Loyola upset Georgetown. So, there's a little bit of tie back there. You know, maybe it was the goalie. Maybe I was the goalie in the prediction is Loyola losing that goalie, but him going to Hopkins. Maybe it was really the goalie in the equation of me predicting the wrong Baltimore team to beat Georgetown. But I have an upset. And I say an upset because I like Hopkins and they're ranked higher by 2 seeds. Give me Georgetown in this game. The DC guys get it done once again. They look good early in the season in the Big East, and then they fall off later. I always say Georgetown's going to fall off. I don't know. I always want to say everybody's going to fall off, but I don't know why coming off that close game for Hopkins, they're going to want to play angrier, but I just think that they're going to come out slow. They're going to play, 3 games in 1 week when it comes to Saturday because they played Saturday, Tuesday, and Saturday again. I think they're going to be a little bit more tired, and I just think that they're going to want to that it's just going to come out and it's going to be Georgetown that's able to get it done that game. So I'm very excited about that one. Definitely going to be tuned into there. Then we got a little Maryland matchup, Loyola versus UMD. Give me the Terps. I tried to pick up set picks for Loyola last week. Like I said, they're playing another top caliber team. It's going to be great for them right now in the season, but they are going to come out. They're all going to start the season with 2 losses, and then they'll get it back in Patriot League play. Again, I love the Patriot League this year. It's always deep. They're going to be a good team. Even if they go in with these big non-conference losses, they're going to be rewarded by playing those tough non-conference teams when they get back to Patriot League play and having played such high opponents. Rutgers versus Stony Brook. I talked about Rutgers earlier in the episode. I really like this Rutgers team. They seem fun. They seem like they move the ball fast. They seem ready. They're in the rankings now. Give me them over Stony Brook. Denver versus Air Force, a little matchup out in the Rockies. Air Force coming off that loss to Lafayette. They had to travel, and they're going to be upset. But this Denver team's nice because this Denver team is also upset coming off of last week's loss to Johns Hopkins. Give me Denver. One of these teams is going to be 0-2, and that's not good for the rest of their season. I think the Denver, the Pios, are going to be able to rake it out and not start their season 0-2. Utah versus Delaware. I talked about it before. I like this Utah team. They were my lock last week. I don't know about my lock, but they were my big upset pick against Ohio State last week. I think they take care of Delaware. St. Bonaventure versus Bucknell. Bucknell looked great last week, and I talked about it in the Patriot League over and over and over. Give me Bucknell in that. Marquette, Detroit, Mercy. Marquette, Detroit, Mercy. Two Midwest teams. This Marquette team that just they broke my heart last week. I believed in them. I really did believe in this Marquette team, and what did they do? They scored 1 goal against Michigan. But it's Detroit Mercy, so give me the Golden Eagles in the give me the Big East team. They're just more experienced. Detroit Mercy is just never the most solid team, never the one that you're going to take in the matchup unless but maybe it's Detroit Mercy this year's NJIT, little America's team action out of them. I don't think so. Give me Marquette on Sunday. I already mentioned it. Iona over Hampton. Then we got Penn State Villanova. Villanova's solid squad. I mentioned earlier, Big Ten's good this year. Give me Penn State. They're going to keep rolling in the matchup of Pennsylvania. And then, just for the sake of it, I'm not going to talk about all the weekday games. Or I'll run through them real quick. I'll save Monday's Syracuse Towson matchup. We'll go Mount St. Bonaventure. Give me the Mount again. Ohio State versus Bellarmine. These games are Tuesday, February 11th. Mount over Bonaventure. Ohio State versus Bellarmine. Ohio State's upset. They're out of the rankings. They're going to beat up on Bellarmine. Holy Cross, UMass Lowell. I don't even know what to predict in that game. Like, give me Holy Cross just because it's Holy Cross Patriot League. I think they're going to be all right, but like I don't know anything about this UMass Lowell team. And then Wednesday, Cleveland State and the number one Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Give me Notre Dame. I don't need to say anything else. I don't. Give me Notre Dame. It could be almost anybody in the country. You give me Notre Dame. But let's go back to Monday. Monday, February 10th. Syracuse versus Towson. This will be Towson's first game since that one goal loss at home to Hopkins just the other day. Syracuse will have played the previous Friday. Both the games are in the JMA Wireless Dome, so they don't have to travel. Towson's the one that's coming up here to Syracuse. They're ranked number 17. They just showed that they can play it close against Hopkins. Syracuse, I'm excited to see what they do on Friday first, but this is Syracuse. This is Syracuse first true test. Not true test, but true Syracuse first ranked test. It's the first ranked opponent. Gonna see what they can do. I'm gonna take the Cuse in it. I'll definitely be in the dome for this game. Really excited about it. And I'm circling this game because they saw Towson in the playoffs last year. Towson just gave Hopkins that one goal game. I know that's in Baltimore. I know rivalry's different, but just watch out for this game. Watch out for it. I hopefully next Thursday when I'm recording, I'm happy and Syracuse is 3-0. I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. But just watch out for that game on a Monday at 5. That'll be really exciting. That's it for today's episode. The Crease violation. Just talking college lacrosse, talking about what's going throughout the weekends. On some of these I might just ramble. On some of these I might not know that much. But if you made it this far in the episode, thanks for listening. Thanks for doing my takes. Hopefully throughout the season I can learn a little bit more about some of these teams because it's hard right now. A lot of them haven't played games, can't watch the highlights on them. But hopefully throughout the season, get some more knowledge. Hopefully I start having some guests on. Just really excited. This is a full slate of college lacrosse this weekend. And then in a couple weeks we'll get the Ivies added too. It's going good. Going good. Very excited about it. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week, Crease Violation. Follow me on Instagram, Collin_P_Smith or Collin_Smith_sports. This is on Collin Smith TV YouTube channel. Yeah, just talking lacrosse. We're having a good time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening this far.